Test, 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 test. Hey, Spence, what's on the screen? How about what now? Hey, Adrian, did you shut the screen off?
I did not. And I'm still getting a beat here.
You are, but it's not up there?
I know. Going back and trying to do stuff.
That's a... I did. Adrian, I put my presentation into presenter mode. Could that be part of the problem? You want me to take it out of that?
So you can try that.
So that didn't work.
That doesn't look even. Actually, go back to your original speaker mode.
But now my screen is not doing anything.
Are you ready?
No, my screen's not. That's working, but this is not now. Yeah. No, my whole thing froze. So I am trying to now. I'm gonna kill everything.
Okay.
Except for
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. But I wouldn't worry about the flickering thing. That's
Okay.
When you unplug it, it freezes on the last thing it was seeing. So that's just because you unplugged the HDMI. And I was like, what? But it's been doing that, so I'm not really worried about that one. It should be fine when you plug it back in.
Go away. Not you.
No, I mean, I was told to be your bodyguard, so I'm here now.
Yes. Okay, so I don't even know what this is. Okay, go away.
Spotify.
Oh, good. Let's kill that.
Try that exit clear. That works too.
Okay, now the presentation I put here, just so I didn't have to go search for it.
Yes, sir.
Let's try this again. No, we don't need to recover anything. We're fine, I hope.
I mean, if you saved before you opened it, I mean, probably
Should
fine.
be.
Hang on 1 second, just thinking about it.
Okay. Let me, come on, damn it. I can't hit anything. There we go. Okay, I'm ready when you are. We're good? Just start? Okay. This is good? This thing's good? Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing this morning? Yeah? Final Derbycon. That's a little sad, no? A little sad. We're all going to cry a single tear. I'm sorry. I'm going to be really jittery because Dave had a prank planned for me this morning that I botched because I turned it up. Can we turn the volume up? No one can hear me in the back. Hey, my bodyguard, I need you. Master of AV. Help. I can do that, but my voice is going to be gone by 10 minutes into this. So anyway, I foiled a prank from Dave this morning. He was supposedly going to call me up on stage to do the opening keynote, and I wasn't there. So he told me, I apologize for whatever's about to happen to you. So if I seem a little jittery, that's why, okay? But we'll see if we can get through this without the prank. Maybe we'll get lucky for one final Derbycon. Yeah, I know. Okay, so today's topic when I talk about is dynamic risk-taking. You just got to give me a sign if I'm not being loud enough for those in the back. And the way I want to do this is by telling you the 5 lessons I learned from being a risk taker, and also some stories that go along with each of those, and then how we can apply that in everyday life, whether you want to be a social engineer or you're just looking to take some risks to expand who you are. So first, what is risk? Let's define it. Here's an example. This is an example of risk on a test. Not a very good one, right? It's a stupid example of risk, and that's not what I'm speaking about. I'm also not speaking about this kind of risk, which is putting ourselves in danger with no thought. So to really define what I thought about risk, let's look at the actual definition, right? So the definition of risk being a situation involving exposure to danger. That's risk. Now, what could that mean? Well, it can mean so many different things, and we'll define that right as we go through. But risk-taking is a whole nother level of that. So it's not just about understanding risk, it's also about understanding those who want to take risk. So that's defined as the willingness to basically put yourself on that path of danger. And then if we add the word dynamic to it, that's a constant changing. So I really can make the definition of dynamic risk-taking is the ever-changing willingness to expose yourself and maybe those around you, like your team, into dangerous situations with the hope of desired outcomes. So if we think about that definition throughout the rest of this speech, you'll help to understand how this can help us in growth no matter what our goals are. Am I still too quiet in the back? No? Okay, good. I'm getting, maybe, somewhat. We can't get, hey, Len, we can't get our AV lady back here to turn this the heck up, can we?
I'll work on it.
Yeah, she went this way. She's probably with Dave. Okay, so let's talk about the...
Ignore the man behind the
Yeah. So this is the first lesson I learned out of the 5 lessons that I learned that we're going to talk about this morning. The first lesson I learned, which is indecision is worse than no decision. And I have a story to tell you to kind of define why I think this is a very important lesson that we can learn. So we had a job that involved us breaking into a healthcare facility, and it was in an area in the Northwest, and we did a lot of OSINT on the place before we went out there, and we found out that there was a large construction project right next door to the facility that we were supposed to break in. And it was just the end of winter before spring. And the construction, dear God, the construction project, sorry. The first Derbycon ever, Dave had tried to hire a poop-throwing monkey. He found somebody. He put an ad on Craigslist, and he found a poop-throwing monkey, and the hotel wouldn't let him bring it in because it's an OSHA violation. So, this is not the kind of risk I'm talking about. So I'm here talking about being risky, but I'm scared, okay? So that's not the kind of risk I'm talking about. This is a different kind of risk. Anyhow, this construction project was stirring up all these little tiny spiders. They were non-dangerous, but there was just billions of them that usually come out in spring, and people don't really notice them because they're all outdoors. But because it was colder, these spiders were crawling inside the buildings, and they were infesting buildings. There's a big newspaper article about it that we found in our OSINT. So we developed a really, really good pretext, which was a pest control company. So we had walked around saying that we were hired by the construction company to come in and do free spraying to take care of the spiders. And we had all these nice little spray jugs filled with blue Gatorade, which, just as a note for anyone who ever decides to steal this pretext, when you spray sugary substances in a client's place, you attract the very insects you were trying to say you were killing. I'm not saying that risk-taking always means intelligence. Sometimes you make some dumb decisions, but that's another story for another time. So we had this perfect pretext. Our outfits were perfect. We had everything. It was really perfect. I'm like, this is going to work. We walk up to the front door. We get in, and security stops us, and they say, we're not letting you in because you're not on the list. And I'm like, dang, like, are you kidding me? Like, we're getting shut down that fast. It was the first 30 seconds. And I was for sure that this was all gonna win. So, we don't want to give up. So we come out of the building, we walk around the side, and we're walking around the side of the building trying to see if there's another way that we can get in. And there's a group of people out there smoking. Now, even though I sound like this all the time, I never smoked. I don't like cigarette smoke smell, but I'm like, we can use this. So I walk up to the group of people smoking and I say, hey, can I just stand here and breathe the fresh air? And they all laugh and chuckle and look at me, and I'm like, I'm trying to quit, but at least if I stand here, it's like a cheat. So this way they weren't going to offer me a cigarette, and then I'm going to be having to smoke something and choking to death that everyone would know that I was never a smoker. So they laugh, and they're like, oh, yeah, I quit 6 times. Yeah, one guy's like, I quit 8 times. And I'm like, yeah, this is my 5th time quitting. So we all have this now common bond over trying to quit smoking. No one even asked what I was doing because of that conversation. So now I walk in the building with them when they're all done on their smoke break, and they hold the door open for me and Michelle, and we walk in the side, and we're going with the group now. And this is the part that we didn't understand was going to happen. As we're walking, the whole group is walking back towards the front where the security guards are that just kicked us out. So I'm like, this is all happening and you're still walking? So, you're thinking like, crap, what do I do? Do I throw Michelle in front of me, let her get arrested? I run, what's the plan? So I didn't do that. You can't plan this stuff. An elevator had just opened. Like, it opened, all the elevators were badged. And I literally just took a left and walked in the elevator and said in my head, I really hope Michelle's behind me, right? So got in the elevator, turned around, she was there, and we just looked at a lady and said, hey, can you badge us to 15? And she did, right? So the moral of the story, the lesson that I learned with this is sometimes things don't go the way you want, right? They don't go the way you want. You have to be able to take the risk to win, right? And if you sit there saying, I don't know what to do, I can't decide what decision, this pretext was perfect, this was the path that was supposed to work, that lack of decision making, that indecision really can cause a failure in your job and in everything that you're doing. Here's some of the lessons, right? So what I found, and this has happened to me so many times, I'm so worried about making the right decision, so worried about making a decision that's going to lead to the desired outcome, that indecision is what occurs. And that indecision really can lead to more failure. So, and although we're going to talk about failure, I think that what's important for this first lesson is that critical thinking is really a major key of the risk taker's life. Being able to critically think through situations, dynamically take that risk, not worry about the outcome, and hope everything works out has been a great life lesson for me as number 1. Okay, the second one, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, this may sound really odd as a life lesson or as a risk-taking lesson, but this actually has become like our company mantra, is to force yourself to do things that really don't make you feel great. Now, that might sound not healthy, but we don't mean putting yourself in like undue harm, but challenging yourself to step out of your comfort zone. And when I was thinking about this story, I thought, literally there's no better person to really use as an example of this than Ryan, right? So if you haven't seen his Derbycon speech, there'll be a link on the next slide or on this slide. I think it's here. I'll just put it up. There it is. I'll put it up there. So I made it a bit.ly link, which of course makes a lot of sense. When after I did it, I thought, who's going to go to that? So if you don't trust me, which I don't understand why you wouldn't, you can just go to YouTube and type in Ryan McDougall Defcon, and you'll find the speech. But the reason that you should watch this speech is because this is a person who, sorry, Ryan, I'm going to embarrass you in front of 5 people. It's fine. So Okay, yeah, you're already on YouTube. So this is a person who is very uncomfortable being in front of large crowds and talking to large groups of people. And when he started working with me, I challenged him to become a speaker, to become a public speaker. Now, not everybody would rise to that challenge with the fear of large groups, with the fear of being in front of people, but Ryan's not that kind of person. He's the kind of person that actually enjoys stepping out of his comfort zone in order to make himself better, to improve his skill set. And does that mean everything he does is always going to be perfect? No. But it doesn't matter. That's not the goal. The goal is not to be perfect at everything. The goal is to challenge yourself to get out of that comfort zone so you have a growth. And I don't want to tell the whole story and ruin it, which I'm not going to. So you need to go listen to that speech. And when you do, you'll understand the lessons that are here on the screen for this particular second lesson in risk-taking, is how important it is that when you take that risk to step out of your comfort zone, that you're willing to allow that discomfort to be your teacher, that you allow that discomfort to help you grow and expand who you are as a person, whether you're doing it for your career or on your own personal development, right? And when you do that, like this statement that I put here, sometimes the only way, do you understand how like butterflies metamorph into, or caterpillars the other way around? So when they put themselves in the cocoon, they actually liquefy themselves. That sounds really gross, doesn't it? They secrete an enzyme. A caterpillar secretes an enzyme, and their whole body breaks down into a liquid substance that then transforms into the butterfly. That sounds like a really sucky process, doesn't it? Like I need to like blend myself to become a different thing. Well, that's what butterflies do when they come out, and they're amazing. So I'm not saying you need to go that far, but you may. You may need to, depending on what your goals are. See, when I first met Ryan, he wasn't a social engineer, but he wanted to be better at becoming one. So he had to become that butterfly to metamorph into something completely different. So if you have that, if you're sitting here saying, well, how can I become a social engineer? How can I expand my career in this field? That may be necessary depending if you're an outgoing person that loves to be in front of people or if you're not. So I really suggest you listen to that speech, and you'll learn so much from it. Okay, the third lesson, finding good people. Now, when you take risks, sometimes you get yourself in situations where you don't always, you may be in the wrong group of friends, or in the wrong job, or you're working with the wrong kind of people, or you're hanging out with the wrong kind of people. That's what I mean by this. All of this applies, right? So how do you find good people? Who defines good? Well, you have to define that for yourself, right? What does it mean to you to have someone that can support you, or a group of people that can support you, and what does that look like? So here's the story, the lesson that I have for you when we talk about this. So after I hired the butterfly that I call Ryan, which I had to make this picture because I thought, that's such a great picture, isn't it? I actually had this thought about over whiskey last night, and I'm like, I got to come here early and finish this. I did this morning, so that's why it's not so great. Sorry, Ryan. I'm just going to leave that there for a sec. No problem. We don't have a manual. We don't have a manual at work, so there's no workplace harassment, okay? Now, so that's the way we avoid harassment at work. I don't have a manual that says I can't do it, so it makes it fine, right? It makes it fine. Okay, so I'm not talking after. I'm talking literally the moment after I hired Ryan. I'm like, hey, we're going to fly to a foreign country and break into 3 banks. That was like his introduction to welcome aboard. Let us go to this foreign country and break into a few banks. And he's like, so give me some details. And I'm like, yeah, so we're going to do OSINT. We got to break into the banks. We got to breach the network if we can. We got to do all this stuff. And they're armed. And he's like, what? And I'm like, oh, nothing. Don't worry about that last part. He's like, do you say they're armed? I'm like, nah, it's fine. Perfectly. It's good. Good, buddy. They were armed. they were pretty much really, really armed. So we did a lot of OSINT. We found out, we were very fortunate that the banks had just were in the midst of completing their PCI compliance tests. So we basically went, and of course I had to redact things, but we went and made what we felt were PCI compliant outfits, right? That looks very PCI compliant-y, doesn't it? Anyone? No? You guys are not my good friends. You're not supporting me here, okay? Aren't you learning the lesson? No. So we went and we had actually the shirts and the cards and everything made up of the company that just finished a PCI compliancy test. And we thought, we'll walk in, we'll tell them that we're here to finish the test because there were some things that were left undone. And neither of us ever had done PCI compliance audits like this. So we were making stuff up as we go. So we came up with this genius plan that we would print out these red stickers that said approved on them. And that if we got into the building, that the way that they would know we approved them is we would have to put a sticker by every network jack. So that would mean that they were approved. Sounds logical, right? Okay, no, I know. But we were trying, okay? We were trying. So we get to the front of the building, and like we said, it's barbed wire. There's armed guards. You know, we don't know exactly what we're going to do to get in. So I said to Ryan, look, just follow the lead. I'm going to get on my phone. I'm going to act like I'm talking to somebody that's already upstairs, and we're just going to walk past security. We're not going to get stopped, right? We're just going to walk past. So we walk in, and I'm doing that. I'm like, hey, yeah, we're coming upstairs now. Yep, we got all the paperwork, and nobody stops us. So we walk upstairs. We've never seen this building. We don't know what's up there. And we get up around the corner. There's a door that says ATM Testing Center. And we're like, that sounds like fun. And there's a woman who's literally coming in front of us walking in. So we're like, we just turn and walk in after her. And she turns around and she's like, excuse me. And I'm like, we're doing PCI auditing. And she's like, okay. And she walks away. And I'm like, okay, Ryan, do the audit thing. So that's what I know, right? So Ryan is literally crawling inside of these giant ATMs and taking pictures of stuff and putting approved stickers everywhere. And I'm standing there talking to this guy, and I'm like, and he's working on the machine, and I'm like, hey, so tell me what you're doing. And he's explaining the process of loading Windows 7 on these things, and he's showing me how he's doing it, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and what does this do, and what does this piece do? Let me take a picture of that for the audit. And we're just standing in there talking to them nonstop, right? There's so many stickers around the place that we're finally like, okay, we should probably leave this. Like, we've, obviously owned this whole thing. So we exit there, and we're walking down towards two doors that we could clearly see that they're locked and they're RFID, but it's the call center for the banking unit. We're like, let's just walk a little slow and see what happens. And as we approach it, a woman is coming out. So I go, oh, let me hold the door for you. So I, chivalry, hold the door open. She exits, we enter. Now, this is the part you can't plan. It was Christmas time, and there was these giant Christmas balls hanging from the ceiling. And I turned to Ryan to tell him, yeah, we're in, and I face plant into a giant Christmas ball, right? I mean, the whole thing's like clang, and everyone turns around. I'm like, dumb American in the house, And they all laugh and let us go. That's cool. So no one stops us. They're all like, yep, that about looks it. Let him go. So we round the corner, and we come, and there's a woman sitting on her desk on the phone, and right next to her is a computer that is turned on, but the password screen is there. So I had said to her, hey, I need you to put your password in this machine. And she said, in that machine? I said, yeah, please. And she's like, why? I'm like, please, just put your password in that machine. And then I take my phone out, and I start recording her, to doing it. And she's like, okay. And she puts her password in the machine. So then I'm like, Ryan, do the auditing thing. So he pulls out a USB key, and he's like, clunk, hack away. We're sitting there, they're all looking at us a little bit, no one stops us. So we're like, we'll just keep hacking the thing. Then a guy behind us gets up and he leaves to go to the bathroom, and he leaves his phone, his badge, and his computer unlocked. So I'm like, hey, Ryan, we should test this one too. So Ryan gets up and he goes over in USB key, we're hacking. That's when finally someone comes over and they say, what are you doing? And we're like, well, we're doing a PCI audit. Well, who's your contact here? And we're like, I'm not sure. Let me look that up for you. So she leaves, and we're like, great, this is awesome. This is where we should have left, right? But we didn't. We stayed, and we hacked more. And then she came back, and she's like, I need to talk to your contact. So we have a local guy who's sitting in a van waiting for us. So I call him on the phone, and I say, hello, Mr. Vice President of the bank. Not saying that, I used his name. I need you to tell this woman here why we belong here. And he just was like, what? And I'm like, play along, dang it. So he's like, yes, they belong there. So she takes us down to security, and the security guard's talking to our fake VP guy. And he's like, yeah, we can let him back in. That's all good. No worry, we're sorry, sir. And I'm like, why is this happening? You know, so regardless to say, that was very successful. So we felt pretty good about ourselves, right? And we drive out to the knock facility, and the barbed wire all around it, and there's these dudes on dirt bikes with these masks with like fangs on them. I'm not even making this up. You can ask Butterfly Boy up here. And they have automatic weapons on their sides, and they're just circling the knock. And Ryan's like, so hey, this wasn't part of the employment contract. And I'm like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine, man. Let's just do it. Just come with me. So we walk up to the knock, and the guard comes out. And he's like, what are you doing? I tell him my whole spiel. We actually had now planned the fake person in the van to play along. We had this whole thing. And he's like, I need to go check the records and see if you're allowed in. And I'm like, okay. And he's walking away, and I go, hey, look, we're two Americans. We're not used to the heat down here. Is there a way we can wait inside with you while you're making your calls? And he's like, okay. So he hits the button. The gates go come open. He lets us into the knock. We're standing there. And I'm like, Ryan, as soon as he goes around the corner of the call, just start hacking everything. So Ryan's ready, right? Got the USB keys, we're waiting. He rounds the corner, he puts his head in an office, and he says something to some guy. And I'm like, okay, he's out of the way. And Ryan's like this, like about to, and this dude the size of King Kong comes out from around the corner. I mean, he was like 6'8", wide and tall. He had a shotgun on each leg. I don't know why you need 2 shotguns. Okay, I don't know why. He had a vest that had knives in it. I'm like, where are we? And he's just standing there like this. And Ryan looks at the computer, he's like, And I'm like, Ryan. And he's like, I wasn't gonna. I'm like, okay, good. It was just, we're just like sat there. And I moved, I just swayed a little bit. And he's like, I'm like, no, I just was rocking back and forth, man, nervous habit. It's cool, you don't have to kill me. This guy could have picked me up and broke me in half. Regardless to say, we didn't hack that one, right? We walked out and just said, I think life is better right now. We'll just call that one a win and this one not. We're cool with that, right? But the point of all this is that the story is that this was his first job with me. He got hired and we're doing this, and I knew right then and there, like, this is the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. Now for me, right, because this was the career path I had, this is what he wanted, you get these kind of people, and then what happens? Well, we had a small team at the time. So, if you've been at the DEF CON SE Village, or you come downstairs here, you'll get to meet the people that I've been able to work with over the last half a decade or so, and they're just amazing people. Now, that doesn't mean that has always been the case. Sometimes you make some mistakes. You get people and they're not the best, or you get with friends that you think they're going to be your great friends, and they turn out to not be so great. Well, what do you do then? Here's some of the lessons I learned. Right? Just because somebody really, really, really wants to be a social engineer doesn't mean they're gonna be good at the job, right? That is oftentimes the case. Sometimes people really, really want it because it's cool. They think it's a sexy job, it looks awesome, but they're just not good at the work. Okay, that's fine. Instead of continually trying so much and failing and then making yourself feel bad, that's a great lesson to move on. Right? And it doesn't mean you're a failure at life, it just may mean it's not the job for you. Right, so if you don't know, you can come downstairs and we'll talk about it. I started a nonprofit foundation called the Innocent Lives Foundation, and we use. Thank you. The mission for the ILF is to unmask people who create and profit from child pornography and child abuse material, and they try to use the internet to hide. And we unmask them, and then we're not a vigilante group. We hand them off to law enforcement, so that way they can be dealt with in the judicial system. And we have people that come and they hear me talk about it, they hear Shane talk about it, they see the videos, and they get emotional. Maybe they've been affected in their life. And they come and they want to sign up. They want to be part of the ILF. They want to work. They want to help catch predators. They want to save kids, because that feels good. I'm telling you, it's like the best feeling in the world to be able to do that. But then we start describing the kind of work they're going to have to do. And they realize, I can't do that. And that's great to realize that before you try. Because trying sometimes on that level, that's going to cause a lot of damage, mentally. So, and social engineering may not be that serious, but in this case, it could have been, right? Sorry, I'm hearing things. It's just making me nervous. And in this case, we were breaking into an armed facility, so it could have been very dangerous. And if Ryan was the kind of person that's like, heck no, I'm never doing that. That's ridiculous. Why did you bring me here? Then maybe that would have been the great job for him. So when you're choosing your career path, your education path, your life path, think through these things. Surrounding yourself with people that are going to support you, but be firm, right? That last one, no, not that one. That wasn't the one. Okay, I have it here somewhere, but it's having friends that are willing to correct you firmly, but still be loving. That's a huge deal, right? Because everyone needs correction. No one's perfect all the time. And if you have a group of friends or workmates that are good at doing that, then it's an open, honest communication relationship, which benefits everybody. So surrounding yourself with those good people really can help you. Okay, this next one, accepting failure and learning from it. This is a great one. Okay, so story time. So we had another job. This is now advancing a little while. I'm with Ryan again, and we have another job, and we're supposed to go break into this place. And ahead of time, we knew that this place was heavily armed. I mean, like really heavily armed. Unlike the other place, that was light armament compared to what we were about to break into. So we got there the night before we were supposed to break into the place, and we thought we'd go scope it out, right? That we'd go check out the place. We knew no guards were there, so because we had done some OSINT, so we figured let's go scope this place out, see what kind of entryways we can have. I'm going to tell you my first fail on this, which I hate talking about, but if I don't, Ryan will tell you the story later, and it'll be worse. So I'm going to tell you the true story, not the Ryan version of the story, okay? No, it's going to be the Ryan version too. So we're scoping this place out, and we don't have any of our gear on. We're just walking around the place, and they have a parking lot there with all their corporate cars. We're trying all the doors. We're trying all the windows. We're trying everything to break into the place. And I come around the front, and I'm in this bush. Like our pretext was that we were, again, pest control. We don't use that one all the time, but this one just fit for this. And we had these UV lights looking for spiders and scorpions that we were supposed to spray. So I'm rounding the corner, and this woman just comes out the front door. Like it's like 11:30 at night. I'm like, whoa, she's working late. So she comes out the front door, and I just take my foot and I put it in the door as it's closing. And I was behind a bush, so I jumped out and did that, and she gets startled, obviously. Right? I mean, big guy wearing black jumping out of a bush, putting his foot in the door. And she's like, who are you and what are you doing? And I'm like, we're from pest control. We're here to check for spiders. We're just going to go in and take care of that. And that is all I should have said. And anyone who's been to any of my APSE classes or any SE class at all, you know that is the point where you should shut up, because she was backing away to her car to leave. I can't stop seeing the fear on her face. And I'm like, I don't want her leaving feeling like we were these horrible people. So I start explaining myself. And I look over at Ryan, and he has this look at me like, shut up, you moron. And I can't. The mouth is now activated. And I'm like, blah, gurgitation of all the things. And then she's like, I am not comfortable with you being here. And I'm thinking, let us not get arrested this night. We're going to wait till later on in the week for that. So we left, right? I let the door close. We didn't get to break in. It was a sad moment. Went back to the hotel. He ragged me for, 2 years. And, it never ends. So we go back to the hotel. And the next morning, we're like, we're going to come and do the pretext. So we come back into the parking lot. And I'm Batmaning into the parking spot. So I'm reversing into the parking spot. And before I can even park the car, like I look over to say something to Ryan, and he's ripped out of the vehicle, slammed on the hood, and cuffed. And I'm like, he's getting arrested. So I put the car in drive, and I'm like, bye. And he's looking at me like, and I'm like, and he's like, and I'm like, so this interaction of a few seconds is like, I'm going to go, because one of us has got to stay alive to break in. It's the job, right? And I'm like debating, like, do I press the gas? And he's like, and I'm like, so I go to put my foot on the gas, and this, no joke, you can ask, she's like 5'2", 5'3" woman that was built like the Incredible Hulk. Jumps out in front of the car, pulls her gun, and says, get out of the vehicle. And I'm like, I think you should put your gun away. Not very smart. Again, risk-taking doesn't always equal intelligence. She's like, step out of the car and I'll put it away. And I'm like, if you put it away, I'll step out of the car. How about that? And she's like, sir, you need to get out of the car now. And I'm like, I'm not feeling that, right? And Ryan, again, now he's cuffed, he's slammed on the hood, and he's like, dude, and I'm like, it's okay, I'm gonna get us out of this, it's okay. Well, that was the result. So, that was the result. Yeah, so I got arrested. We both got arrested. She slammed me on the hood so hard when she ripped me out of the car, my glasses and hat flew across the hood onto the floor. And I said, and by the time that my face hit the hood, I was cuffed both hands. And I went, whoa, that was the best cuffing I've ever had. And she goes, you get cuffed a lot, don't you, scumbag? And I'm like, I'm gonna die here, right? Like, this is gonna be so bad. So, they walk us over to the shade. She says, you armed? I said, no, I'm not armed. And she starts frisking. And then she finds my knife, right? And this is a Microtech Halo, so it's a spring-loaded knife. But she's doing this. And I'm like, oh man, please don't point that at your face. She goes, why? And I'm like, well, that's a spring-loaded knife. She goes, I thought you weren't armed, on the ground, scum! And now I'm on my knees in execution style. And I'm like, and Ryan's like, give her the letter. And I'm like, not yet, we can get out of this. We can get out of this. And he's like, the letter. And I'm like, no. So I'm still trying to talk us out of it, I'm like, it's okay, we can do this. We're pest control. Look at the back of our car. We have the sprayer. She's like, I'm not looking at anything. What are you doing here? And we tried 15, 20 more minutes. I was trying my hardest. We're sweating. People are gathering around, taking these pictures, videotaping us, getting arrested. They're like, you want us to call the other cops? They're like, no, we got these scum. And then finally it's like, we were gonna get tased or shot or something bad was gonna happen. So I'm like, okay. I have something that will explain why we're here. If you just go get my clipboard, ignore all their camera equipment in it, because I had all these micro cameras in the clipboard so we can record. Just pull a letter out of the clipboard and it will explain. I'm not getting a clipboard for you. Tell me what you're doing. I'm like, please, the letter will explain everything. She did not want to hear anything. So eventually we had to tell her, we told her, then the mail officer went and got the letter, and we were clear. But the lessons are, failure is the best teacher, because actually, I can't tell the rest of the story. Yeah, I can't. Talk to me later. There's some great parts of the story. We failed. So that week in that week we got arrested 3 times. 3 times in 1 week. Now that's a record for me. Usually I got arrested once on a job, but 3 times in a week, and we got chased by 8 fully armed automatic weapon guards out of a parking lot. And again, Ryan's like, hey, can we just lay on the ground and get arrested? I'm like, no, go. And I put the car in drive, and I'm like sideways out of the parking lot. And he's like, we're gonna die. I have children at home. I'm like, it's fine. I keep hearing myself sounding like Dave. It's terrible. The lessons were, we failed a bunch of times that week, right? We failed a bunch of times. But at the end of the week, when I thought man, we got to go tell the client that we failed, they were ecstatic. Because what we did is we helped them uncover some vulnerabilities, but they also got to see where they were really, really strong. They got to see the things that they were doing really good. So if you make failure about your ego, and this is a lesson I learned by doing it right and wrong over the years. If you make failure about your ego, then you can't see that point. You can't see those lessons. You can't see that risk-taking is really valuable, because all you're thinking of is, I got to win. And if I don't win, that's attached to me as a man or a pen tester or whatever. And that ego portion means that you're going to put that in front of success. So this pen test was very successful. And to the point where they are so happy with all the results, but we couldn't have tied it to our ego. So there was a lot of successes that week too. We did end up breaching a couple places there without getting arrested. But if you link the failures to your ego, you will almost always, guaranteed, not see the bigger picture. And that is a major life lesson I had in risk taking. Okay, and then number 5, don't be afraid to reinvent the wheel. This is and I don't mean that everyone needs to do this, but let's think about this. Sometimes our industry has been doing one thing the same way for so long, and we just keep doing it that way because that's the way it's been done. And yet we don't see any change, right? So tonight we have a panel in the SE Village that's talking about security awareness, what works and what doesn't. right? So we have a panel talking about that because this is a big problem in our industry, right? We go out, we pen test, we break into stuff, we hack the crap out of everything, and then year after year, are we seeing improvements? Yeah, some, slight, but not a lot. Why is that? Well, because, yeah, we're getting better at doing the breaking stuff, but what about the educating piece afterward? So you have to look at something that's not working and say, let's reinvent the wheel. Let's try something new. Let's try something different. That doesn't always mean it's successful, right? Like, if you think about it, I got a chance to start social-engineer.org 12 years ago. And when I did that, it was a fluke. I honestly thought it was just going to be like me and a few people that would find benefit from it. And now we're going on 12 years with that site, 10 years podcasting, 10 years newsletters, and it's a content provider. And I'm not saying that about me because my team does most of the work, and they're providing actual, actionable, usable content to the world on social engineering. That was something that wasn't being done at the time, so I'm really proud of that. That spawned off the SECom, oh God. Yeah? Hey, Dave.
No, you can have a peaceful conversation. Just saying, hey.
Hey, man. Love you. I just don't believe him. I don't believe him.
You should.
I don't believe him. Okay. Every time I hear the door, my sphincter just goes a little, like it just hurts a little every time. Okay. I don't know what I was saying. But anyhow, all of it led to starting the ILF, which was spawned out of this industry, right? Because the short version of a very long story, if you haven't heard it yet, is we were doing some pen tests for a company and uncovered a person who was using their corporate network to produce and trade child pornography. And that guy is now in prison. And that felt really good because I never thought in my life that my greasy little hacker self would ever do something that would amount to saving a life, right? We just break stuff. That's all we do. And when I did that, and then it happened the second time, and it happened the third time, I went, maybe there's other people like me who want to do this stuff. And that's when the ILF was formed. But that was reinventing the wheel because when I went to my lawyer, no joke, and I went to law enforcement agents and I said, what is the reality of a private organization helping you hunt those who create child porn? Well, any harboring of child pornography in this country is against the law. So how do you do the job and make sure that you're not breaking the law? I'm not going to tell you, okay, because that's proprietary. But we had to reinvent many things in order to be able to accomplish that task. And that's why I say don't be afraid to reinvent the wheel. Now, with that said, there's my fail. I had to pull this out of the archives. That was my first business, White Hat Defense. That's where, if anyone wants to know a fun fact, my moniker, Logan WHD, that's where the WHD comes from. That company failed miserably. We did not grow at the times. It wasn't great. I tried to reinvent things and it didn't work. And I'm telling you this because not every time you try to reinvent something will it actually be a raging success. There may be a time, and I couldn't find the logo. I really, really wanted to. My very first attempt at reinventing things was a computer company. And that did not go well at all. So, here we are now going on 20 years, and the reinvention had to happen a few times to get to where we are. Here's some lessons. So, the fear of failing should not stop you from trying, right? Because I can tell you honestly, if I had more time, I'd sit up here and tell you all the times I tried to reinvent myself or things that failed miserably. But if you let that fear stop you, then you won't move forward. But when you try and you succeed, it feels so good and the success feels amazing. But we oftentimes stop because of fear. We oftentimes don't move forward because we're afraid of that discomfort or putting ourselves out there. Okay, so how can we apply this all to ourselves? Because I'm going on 10 minutes and I want to make sure we have some Q&A time. So first, the first lesson, if you remember, it was indecision is worse than no decision. So don't wait for the perfect circumstances. I've heard people say this about everything in life. I'll go to school when, I'll have kids when, I'll change careers when, and all of those whens or buts or ifs end with some life-altering circumstance that may never occur. Don't allow yourself to be limited because of external circumstances. Make those circumstances happen if you want. Make a decision and move forward. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable, honestly, is maybe one of the top and out of all the five. I've learned more growth from allowing that to occur. I mean, I've had a 15-year friendship with Dave Kennedy, and all he does is prank me. I mean, he actually modified the seat heater in his car and then invited me to dinner so he can burn my arse. He put a freaking oven burner in the seat of his car, okay? And I had him on the podcast for like 7 years as a co-host. I mean, I consider him one of my closest friends, and all he does is abuse me. It doesn't even make sense. It's like I have Stockholm Syndrome. That's not the lesson I want you to learn, okay? I don't want you to learn to have Stockholm Syndrome. Don't have friends like that. But what I mean is being uncomfortable in that situation helped me to grow. Helped me to grow in the industry, helped me to grow with my team, helped me to grow with people, and I learned a lot from it. And there's some valuable lessons there. Finding good people. You know, there's always people out there who are going to tell you suck. No matter what you do, no matter how good you are, no matter how many times you try to do good things, there's always people out there that are going to try to find fault with you do. You know, I had just went back and looked at some reviews of my first book, and don't bother, he's full of himself. I never really got that complaint from many people, but this guy wrote it so bad, and I didn't put the rest of his review up there. How about this one? A waste of time, like its fat, disgusting author. Well, that's hurtful. Dang. Ouch, a little bit, you know? But the other one I couldn't put up there because it was just too long. This guy actually wrote that the 350 pages of Hadnagy's books are stained with his masturbatory fantasies. Not kidding. I'm not kidding. That is out there. So no matter how much good you try to do, like giving out free education, saving kids from predators, trying to help the industry, people will always find fault with you. And you can't let that get to you. I mean, sure, does this hurt? Yeah, I mean, you know, I read these and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can lose a little weight. That hurts, but I didn't think I was disgusting, you know, I mean, whatever. But, you know, you read these things and it can be really hurtful and it can hurt your ego. And I'm going to say I'm joking about it now, but sometimes it's really painful when you read this. When people attack you, your family, because of what? Because you put yourself out there. Don't let that stop you, right? Surround yourself with the people that will tell you, hey, you know what? That book had a few errors that really sucked, but, you know, you did good here, here, and here. Or you can improve by doing this. That's the kind of people I want to surround myself with. Number 4, accept failure and then learn from it. Attaching your ego to anything you do, whether it's success or failure, is always going to lead you to disappointment, right? Because if your ego's attached to it, you're going to find that when you succeed, it blows you up, but when you fail, you're crushed. You can't do that. Look at each thing as separate and not attached to who you are as a person. Your successes could define you, so can your failures, but it should not define who you are as a person. And then finally, don't be afraid to reinvent the wheel. And we could even change that. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself, right? To look at where you are now and say, in 5 years, here's where I want to be. What do I have to do to reinvent me? Okay? Now, this is some time for Q&A. There's all my contact details. It's a great thing for a social engineer to do. Anybody want to ask questions about anything? Yes, sir.
When was the first time you were put in handcuffs but got out without using the letter?
So the question was, when was the first time I was put in handcuffs and I got out without using the letter? It's kind of I don't know if this is going to answer you, because what I did is I used a fake letter. So I got hired by a company that basically told me when they hired me that they did it just so we can come and fail because they needed to check a box. And that to do it, they basically mail you a letter in a sealed envelope. If the envelope was unsealed, then I broke the contract. So what I did is I unsealed the envelope with steam, and I scanned the letter, and I wrote my own stuff in the middle, which basically said that if you catch this guy, you're one of our elite security guards. So take him to a conference room and then call this number to report yourself and write your badge number on here. And so I walk in the building. I knew I was going to get caught because everyone got caught. So I got cuffed, and I'm like, hey, in my pocket, there's a letter. So he pulled the letter out, unsealed the envelope, started reading it. As soon as he got to the point about being elite, he did this. And I said, I'm in. It's done, right? So he takes his pen out, he writes his badge number on the letter, and he's like, come with me. I'm like, I can't really do much else. So I follow him and go to the conference room. He leaves to go call what we had put an extension for a fax number on there. And I'm pawn plugging every jack in the whole place, right? He comes back and I'm like, do. And he's like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but that's a fax number. I'm like, I don't know, man. The letter was sealed. You opened it. He's like, well, what do we do now? I'm like, I don't know. What does the letter say? The last paragraph was, he has to test other places, so please do not disclose who this man is and take him to wherever he needs to go. Right? So he's like, well, I guess I got to escort you to test other people. I'm like, that's cool. I have to go to the knock. And he's like, come with me. I mean, I'm walking down the aisle like, bow, 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 and he's like badging me into places. We get to the server room, and he's like, hey, Tony, he's with me. It's fine. So we go in the room. He's like, now what are we doing? I'm like, well, it's not really much of a test. If you're here, you should probably leave. He's like, cool, fist bump. He gives me the letter, and he leaves. So I'm like Scrooge McDuck swimming in server cables, you know? I'm like, wee, wee. And this guy comes around me. I'm literally like leaning on a rack taking selfies. This guy comes around the corner. He's like, hey, what are you doing here? I'm like, Tony said I can be in here. He was like, okay, cool. Regardless to say, that company never hired us again. They thought I cheated, but, you know, hopefully that answers your question. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Chris, kind of curious about social engineering at this point in time. Like, how do you see it being used and advancing by attackers and by defenders? How is it evolving that field?
Can I have an hour? Okay, the question was, how do we see SE being used by attackers and defenders? So if I can answer the attackers quickly, vishing is on the increase, huge increase. Vishing is being used in so many more attacks than it was a year or two ago. And I think the statistic that I read was something like over 80% of all BEC or spear phishing type attacks are now using social media tidbits, social media knowledge for the target. So that means the attackers are now doing more OSINT. They're perfecting their craft. They're writing good spell-checked and grammar-checked emails, unlike that sentence. And they're using attack vectors that are a lot more intelligent and realistic. From a defender standpoint, I think what proves this, and you know, this is a whole nother topic, is the increase in the amount of social engineering courses. I remember when I had the only SE course out there. I mean, it was like 3 years at Black Hat. There was no one else teaching social engineering. And now you look down the list and it's like SE this, SE this, SE this, SE this. Defenders are saying, hey, we need more. So people start teaching me. So we're seeing more and more increase in social engineering being part of education, which is why, you know, this is a shameless plug, but why I started the SE Village Conference, which is up there in February, because what I wanted to do was bring together some of the best in the world to educate the defenders and those who want to use SE to better their careers and their life. You can.
So just so you all know, I took Chris's class. It's a fantastic class.
I'll give you $50 later.
It's going to get you out there and do things that you never thought was possible. So if you want to be like Orion, please go for it. It's definitely worthwhile.
Oh, thank you.
$100 now.
Yeah, seriously. That was a better sales pitch than me. So I think I'm out of time, but here's the deal. We have SE Village. It's downstairs. When you come down the escalator, you go to the right. We're all the way down the hallway. I will be in there if you want to come and ask more questions. We have some time this afternoon while we're setting things up. And if anybody wants to chat, feel free to come up. Thank you, everybody.